From the clouds way above down to a bendy road, where the bus I was travelling upon sped faster and faster. It went so fast I could feel the very speed of it through the plastic covering right to my hands, that trembly feeling as all is lost control of. I lifted my hands to the air, and the bus raced even faster. The other passengers aboard the bus screamed as we shot around a tight corner onto the road, just missing a car. The steering wheel turned right around, spinning the smoke-ridden wheels onto the pavement, across the road, to the other side and straight into the front of a house. That put a halt to this fast and furious journey. I got out of the vehicle and looked back at my passengers, whose faces were as rigid as were funny. I opened the door and told them the bus was out of service and this was the last stop. Outside the bus, I checked the damage to the house. The front was missing. Nobody was inside. It was Andy's house. I shouted out his name. He was an old friend, so I guess he wouldn't mind me dropping in and seeing how he was. He might not be pleased about the hole in the front room, but hey, every friend makes mistakes. I'm sure I have forgiven him for his shortcomings many a time, so as I saw it, we were now all square. The familiar sounds of police sirens and 2 ambulances sped past, slamming their brakes and smacking into the reverse side of the bus. Knowing the now up passengers back down to the floor. Knocking the now up passengers back down to the bus floor. In the ensuing moments, the police took many statements, including one from me, before they left along with the said passengers, and the company tow truck came and began to pull away the bus. It was getting late, and for some reason the bus company did not send a car out for me to drive home, as they would normally do when we changed buses. So I stepped into the front of Andrew's front room and called out for him once again, but yet again no answer came back. Despite the gaping hole in the front room, the house looked rather attractive. It was carefully decorated with tasteful colours. Some might say slightly boring. Safe is the word I'd choose. But that was Andy all over. He was a magnolia man. In all things, I was more your black and red kind of man. But each to their own, and all the colours make up the rainbow anyhow. Andy, I shouted from the top of my lungs. I was at the bottom. I never had been too keen on biology, especially my own. So whether it was top or bottom which reverberated, so that Andy's name could be bellowed, I could not swear. But I was almost 100% positive, well, sure, as far as I could be, that it was one of them, at least. I walked into the kitchen, flicked the almost empty kettle which began to gurgle and groan. The sink was full of dirty plates where all the cups happened to be. Whilst the boiling process occurred, I walked around the bottom of the house, to which there was no sign of Andy, the proprietor of this house. I went up to the stairs, and to each room he was not there either. Maybe I thought he was out and would soon return. I checked my watch. It was 10 p.m. Seemed a little late for a magnolia man. What struck me from the house was the fact that it seemed nicely decorated, and yet items were flung about everywhere. Videotapes, computer discs, and computer left running with a blank screen, post-it notes on the walls, and papers with scribbles everywhere. Something didn't quite fit. And clutching a pile of papers, I went to the ground-up kettle and poured its contents into an empty glass, and sat on his kitchen table, leaning with the paper spread out. The words were hard to read, as if there was some kind of KBI agent's code. But it was nothing so special, it was just poor handwriting. The scribbles seemed frantic, and the ink was hard-pressed upon the surface, so much so it engraved the back of the papers. If at all you could have described my mood as previously being jovial, then it could no longer be called so, as I started to make out words written by my friend who did not come home. The words murder, kill, the spirit, and such I read. But one full sentence, which filled one sheet in big letters, worried me the most. The black shadow touched me. I felt its words whisper on my ears. I dropped my cup on the floor, startling myself, and it was then I noticed that I had come in when the sun was up, and now I was shrouded in darkness. And how in that depth, things that in the light of the day would scare not even the weakest of men, would make the hardest shudder, as if a dead man had indeed the power to walk out of a grave, where a living man shall that very day be buried. I dropped the waters and bolted to the living room. I dropped the papers and bolted to the living room, where the hole in the wall suddenly became a source of fear for me. Whatever my friend had referred to could easily enter this house this very night whilst I was inside it. And yet, as reason became apparent to me, I realized why should I indeed give any credence to the words of my late lamented friend, for I knew him to be a very quiet and often, one might say, strange man, who kept in himself inside the thoughts of his soul. Yet what a deadly secret was he holding out on, I did wonder. For those words brought pimples upon my very pimples. What was this black shadow, the spirit he had referred to, and what had my friend to do with this? Where indeed was he now? I felt that I had no business opening up this upon the world, and yet it was exactly what I had done, or soon would learn I had done. For in this living room, watching the whole, as people walked past outside and stared and laughed, I laughed with them, as if it was not my hole, not my house that it was within, and yet I started to wonder whether indeed it was some kind of strange fate that had brought me to this infernal house this day. Why indeed had I been racing in my bus? Out of all the houses I could have collided into, why was it my friends who seemed to have gone missing? What cruel matter of fate had I indeed walked into? What indeed? I switched on his television set in the hope that this ghostly vision would keep me company, but all I got was static. There appeared no picture on the set. Maybe I thought his air was broken, but I found a lot of his electrical appliances in the house to be of faulty nature. Or was it something more? I picked up another pile of papers, and the same sort of handwriting was written, but this time it was in a diary form, and I managed to read more. Day by day he wrote of some kind of creature or parts of he had come upon whilst digging a hole to bury a tree. He told how he wished he had in hindsight never found these bones, that he had never picked them from out of the dark ground and brought them into the house, for he said he felt from the very moment of him bringing them into the house that a cold shiver ran from his head down to his very toes, that from the corner of his eye he felt he saw some light anomalies that drifted in and out of his vision and disappeared. He then, over the next few days, that to me was 2 months ago, gave description of more strange occurrences that happened to him. He told of lights going off, of hearing scraping sounds on the wall, of having visions of a time long ago, of people being tortured. So real he thought that he felt every cut upon their body, and felt the moment as they faded and died. Often he would wake up in the night with a scream, as he himself had been tortured through his sleep. Then the week before today's date, he described seeing a black shadow, which at first would disappear as if it had felt it had been seen. But on the last few entries, which stopped short of the last few days, he talked as if this black shadow was conversing with him, of strange inaudible sounds mixed with words which frightened him so he seemed to have stopped writing down any more. It is strange that man in the search of wisdom will often make the same mistake, no matter how many times and even with strong words he is warned. But I went out in the garden to see this hole he had dug up, and I expected a small hole for a tree. I was taken aback. What I saw was a huge 10-foot hole that was at least 8 feet wide. It was so deep that I could not see down it. I laid on the ground and stuck my head down, gripping my fingertips into the edge of the hole, but I still could not see nothing down there. I felt myself slipping, so I quickly pulled myself up and back into the house, locking the back door. I went to the bottom of his stairs and looked for some kind of torch, which I did eventually find in the kitchen drawers, and was about to go back out to the hole and look down there properly to see these bones, when I heard a ring on the doorbell. I froze on the spot as it sounded again.